U.S. privacy laws are important, like the Fourth Amendment, for instance. So you always hear about this if you're watching crime shows or YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever, where if there's not probable cause and there's no warrant, there's no illegal search procedure. And because of that, the courts have tried to expand what that looks like, and sometimes it holds up, sometimes it doesn't. And we'll talk about a few of these here. One of the first things that comes to mind is this Privacy Act of 1974. So this is super old, but one of the things that you may recognize here with this is this FOIA request. And so it became even more prevalent. The Freedom of Information Act became even more prevalent after September 11th, but the privacy is to this particular only adheres to the government agencies, not to private organizations. The ECPA here is the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. It took advantage of an existing act called the wiretap and started to lean on that a little bit more to get up with the times. And so it tried to protect against monitoring of email, voicemail, and so that's what the Electronic Communications Privacy Act was. These right here, the CALEA here, the Communication Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, was passed in 1994, and then after September 11th here, 62% growth in wiretaps, where they intercept not only the data, internet usage, and but also collecting and analyzing any type of communications on different networks, like the FBI's digital network that's mentioned down in the last slide, or the last bullet point. One that you will absolutely see on your exam, whether it's the answer or one of the answers, is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. If you've been to the doctor, or if you've been to the dentist since 1996, or any medical facility, or any medical forms, it's likely that you have given consent for HIPAA with those organizations. And so this was passed to try to make sure that individual medical information cannot be shared with people that you as a consumer don't want it to be shared with. And so the privacy and security of that is important, and individual medical records, you can't disclose that unless the person actually gives it in writing. Whether or not this is actually the case is a different story, but we'd like to believe that. And I say that because, for a long time, if you have pre-existing conditions, that I think the spirit of this for healthcare is that, it would try to keep people's information private. But in any case, you will see HIPAA on the exam. Just know that it's healthcare related, and it was a specific to try to protect people's healthcare information. Most of these are a opt-out rather than an opt-in. And we'll talk about why that is, because if it's an opt-out instead of an opt-in, typically people won't opt out of it. But just like when you apply for a car loan, or anything that you do where you have to get your credit checked, usually they'll follow it up and tell you that, hey, here's who we're planning to share our information with. Please send us back this paper form fill it out within 30 days if you don't want us to share it with these people. So similarly, like that, yeah, I agree. It was a hot mess. It still is. I mean, but many of the doctors' offices that we do vulnerability assessments or other types of testing for or manage, when we started managing them, they would have people fill out the paper forms for HIPAA, but whether or not they were actually enforcing it was a different story. All right, so another one that you'll see on the exam, maybe as an answer or one of the answers, is this thing that's called high tech. And this is usually something that people haven't seen before until they take the CISSP. And so what this does is they have this thing called PHI, protected health information. Usually you won't see HIPAA and high tech in the same question if you get it on the exam. So at least they're being a little bit fair to you there, right? But this was created because HIPAA didn't say anything about what happens if those medical facilities organizations are compromised. What if they're breached? What kind of notifications need to go out? And is there a fine for that? And who was actually breached? And so this was brought to life for that within a certain amount of time. I believe it's 72 hours that there needs to be at least some sort of disclosure, and then the entities are given an amount of time to come up with what the right way to notify these people are. I think it might be 6 weeks from the start of the breach, 3 days to notify the government, and then 6 weeks to notify the consumers. I believe that's what it is, but you won't see something like the timings on the exam. It's just at a high level, knowing the difference between these, specifically these last two, because we usually do see those on the exam. This Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. A lot of times you'll see this for if you're trying to create a bank account for your kids, or if you're okay with them having an Instagram when they're 13. If they're younger than 13, then you have to either use your account and verify it for their own account, or put in some parental controls there. And that's just trying to keep the innocence of the kids while they're on this big internet thing that has all sorts of crazy people out there publishing all sorts of stupid things, like on TikTok. The one that is important that you will see, so this COPPA, usually we don't see that on the exam. One that we do see is the Graham-Leach-Bliley. So this is one that we do see on the exam. This is what I was just talking about sharing information when you apply for any type of loan or insurance or credit. The Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, these were the three people that proposed and put it into law, or helped to put it into law. It said what information could be exchanged and what subsidiaries they would do. And so you would have to notify those consumers that you're sharing it with them, with these with these subsidiaries. And oh, by the way, you have 30 days to opt out. And typically, it's staggering and I'm guilty of it too sometimes. It's staggering the amount of people that don't actually send back that paid postage envelope with the letter saying no thank you. But the Graham-Leach-Bliley is that it's sharing of information for credit agencies with subsidiaries or banks or insurance companies. So did you know that the Patriot Act was not only passed in 2001, but it stands for something: uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism act. So it actually means something. And it's when it first came out, it was pretty much carte blanche across the board of the government being able to do just about whatever they wanted to with monitoring comms on the internet or phones and getting information. And dare I say that it's still pretty liberal to this day, still pretty liberal. So they can invoke the Patriot Act and get user activity through subpoenas and pull down different information under a warrant as well. So the Patriot Act still is alive and kicking, and I think that it was either Obama or Trump that re-upped it. Like it was coming to the end. It just still is quite broad in the scope of it, and I think it has been very beneficial for bringing down terrorist networks within the United States. One that, as a professor, I'm familiar with is the FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Not only as a professor, but as a father of 2 kids that are in college right now. What's weird is that, just a side note here, a little sidebar, I'm paying for them to go to school, yet I have to have them approve my request to see what their grades are. Yeah. And that's because they're over the age of 18, so they're an adult, right? They're still taking money from me. But schools can't release personal information without the express written consent of the National Football League. Oh, no, that's something else. So they can't release personal information without written consent unless there's exigent circumstances, right? But most of the time, it's like pulling teeth for me, at least, to get my kids to tell me how they're doing in school. But a lot of times what I'll do is guilt them into to let me know. But FERPA is a big deal, especially where I teach at, keeping people's information, students' information private. Oftentimes I'm kind of a dork about it. If I'm in the big cyber lab at UAH and I'm bringing up grades, I'll make it super, super small on my computer and not share it out, obviously, but that way nobody can look over my shoulder and I'll have to get out my readers to see the 4-point font just to try to hide it as best as I can, keep that information private. But FERPA may be on the exam. It may be on the exam. This is one that I usually don't know too much about, and so I don't want to even pretend like I do. So does anybody know anything about the Identity Theft and Assumption Deterrence Act? I know a little bit about this, but not much. But basically what it says is that anybody who is guilty of identity theft, you're going to have to not only pay a fine, but up to 15 years in prison. So there was a time here, and again, this is just based off of my limited knowledge, and there still is a time where a lot of older people are being taken advantage of, and whether that's through taking advantage of their loneliness and wanting to just talk to people, or taking advantage of them not checking their mail right away. They'll go up, take the mail, figure out what their SSN is, their social security number, and then go apply for credit, get a credit approved, be able to steal tons of information, tons of money, and then leave the old person with the bill to pay for themselves. And so those types of people, there's a special place in hell for them. But that particular case means that if you're caught doing that, for each of those times that you're caught, it's up to 15 years in prison, $250,000 fine. This is something that not identity theft, but taking advantage of some of our senior citizens. This ain't cool.